Fortnite has told us exactly what is going on with Demon's Domain for Grand Finals. They've said the loot is staying exactly the same, but everyone's still confused how that's possible, how there's going to be a major event, but the loot isn't going to change. I'm going to talk about what they've said and what I think it actually means, but what does this mean for Peterbot? Is Peterbot going to go back to Demon's Domain? Is it going to do anything on EU? I'll talk about all the new drop spots. We now have Cooper being contested in Grand Finals. We have Curve switching drop spots. We also had some of the best scrims I've ever watched, which was kind of like a pre-show to Grands. All the teams are playing, and I want to talk about who's looking the best. Is Peterbot now dominating at his new drop spot? Why is Clicks now struggling all of a sudden? There's a lot to talk about. Let's jump into it. Alright, so what is going on with Demon's Domain? Fortnite has come out and tried to make an official statement to clear things up, and they've only made it more confusing. So, Fortnite Competitive tweeted out, heads up, after the Super Showdown story event on August 2nd, Daigo, the NPC boss at Demon's Domain, will appear at the bottom of the Citadel. Now, I'll come back to that in a second. Please consider this change if you're landing Demon's Domain in FNCS Finals, NA Central, NA West, and BR. So this does confirm that the fact that we're still going to have regular whatever Demon's Domain on day one of all the other regions. But it's day one into day two on the other regions that are going to cause issues with the NA West, NA Central, BR. Now, Daigo is going to appear at the bottom of the Citadel. I had to do some research to figure out what they were talking about here. They're talking about the actual building, because when they describe the POI at Demon's Domain, they describe it as Daigo's Citadel. So like the giant actual, Demon's Domain building, that is a Citadel. So for some reason, the boss is going to be down on the ground, which makes you think, okay, the leaks are true. The POI is going to be destroyed. There's going to be no loot, but Daigo is just going to be walking around. Well, not really, because then Fortnite responded to someone asking what is going to happen to the rest of the loot, and they said it's going to stay the same. I'm not entirely sure how that's possible. Like, we've seen the videos, we've seen the pictures. Apparently, it looks like the POI is turning into a giant portal where there's gonna be like an alien kraken thing that spawns out of it. And now Daigo's moving, but the POI is still gonna be there. I just don't really know exactly what's going on here. And it seems like everyone else is confused as well. So Fortnite's tried to come out and give clarity, but it's making it more confusing. So the way I understand it, and again, there's a lot to unpack here, I believe that day one of EU and all the other regions, nothing changes. It's just going to be regular Demon's Domain. Once the event happens, though, we're going to have the event, which they've moved Grand Finals for, even though it's not going to change anything. And then Daigo is going to move, but all the loot's going to be the same. Like, we literally have seen a giant bolt of lightning hit the Demon's Domain building and it crumbles apart. I guess maybe it just doesn't affect any of the chests. Like all the weapons and the floor spawns are still the same. I don't see how it's going to be physically possible that nothing changes. Maybe they're just trying to let people know that the POI is mostly still the same. And if it was a regular tournament like a cash cup, mostly the same wouldn't be that big of a deal. But in Grand Finals, if even 2 rocks are gone, which is how, one of these teams got 500 brick and that's how they were able to, build their surge trading base, or that's how they were able to rotate into zone, that's already going to affect things. So I'm a little bit concerned, but the next question is, if Demon's Domain is reportedly going to be exactly the same, the boss is still going to be there, the medallion and the mythic AR is still going to be there, then is Pete still going to be there? The answer is no, Pete will not be going back to Demon's Domain, at least right now. Pete is locking down Brutal Boxcars. That's where he dropped in all games of the Pro Scrims today. I'll talk about that in a little second. But Pete did go on to talk about the fact that he can go back to Demon's Domain wherever he wants. Maybe he might go back, and if it gets down to a position where maybe like Acorn's in first and Pete's in second, or Pete's in first and Acorn's in second, and dropping a Demon's Domain could actually make sense. That's a really good card that Pete has up his sleeve, but he's liking Brutal Boxcars. He's locked in, he's grinding like crazy, and he can win Grand Finals from that drop. Even if nothing changes at Demon's Domain, I do still think Pete's team at Brutal Boxcars could beat Acorn's team at Demon's Domain. So again, we'll have to wait until we see the day of Grand Finals. Obviously, Pete said he was never leaving Demons. Now he's saying he's not leaving Boxcars. He could change his mind. I think Acorn's team will definitely be kind of watching out behind them every time they jump out of the bus, especially coming into the end of Grands. But for now, Pete is locking down Boxcars, and their playstyle has completely shifted. In the Pro Scrims today, they were playing a lot of surge trading and a lot of storm tanking, which is going to be a playstyle that's a lot more effective in Grands than just trying to drop 20 bombs. Now, people keep talking about off-spawn rep and, oh, this has ruined Peter's off-spawn reputation. He got bitched off, he left, and I get it. there's been a lot of egos in this spawn fight. There's a lot of eyes on it. It's created a lot of content. You might not like Pete, or maybe you love Pete, so you're going to have a pretty strong opinion on this. But the way I see it is, at this point, Pete losing a few times off spawn this season, especially going 5-1 in the Div 1 finals, has already hurt his off spawn rep. Coming into this season, people truly thought Peterbot was unbeatable off spawn, and that was proven to not be true. So I think any team coming into globals that was going to or not going to contest Peterbot, I don't think that changes based on them going brutal box cars. Like, we've got teams like Fortnite on EU who've already said they're going to go the best drop spot on land. Doesn't matter who they're versing, they are going to go there. And I honestly believe those players, and I think those players were going to contest Pete regardless. But now that Pete has lost off spawn, there might be a few teams who are maybe more likely to go after him, but I don't think that changes if he now goes brutal box cars. Pete's shown that he can lose off spawn, and if anyone wants to try to give that a chance at globals, they're going to. Going brutal box cars at least gives them a chance to potentially win this grand finals, because I do truly believe if Pete and Pollo contest each other in the grand finals, neither of them are winning, and there's a lot of money on the line this FNCS. Both teams are called to land, and globals are right around the corner, but we still have this FNCS first. So I've been saying since the very start of the season, all I wanted to see was for grand finals, all the best teams to have phenomenal drop spots, and we see who comes out on top, and that's what we now have. Acorn's got Demon's Domain, Pete's got brutal box cars, Clix has Supernova. This is going to be such a fun grand finals to watch, to see who can come out on top. If we see a Pete dropping a Demon's Domain on Pollo in game 12, obviously that'll be amazing. But for the most part, I am now more excited for grands with the way this is shaped up. Now, I talked about the pro scrims, and I want to talk about how these drop spots have switched up the map, because we actually had scrims today where we had 30 of the 30 teams qualified to grand finals playing. So we got a very, very good look at how grands might be playing out. Now, firstly, Pete out brutal box cars, like I said, is playing far more passive. It's very similar to Veno's playstyle, which makes sense because they both work with the same coach. It does truly feel like this was kind of inevitable, and there's been some conversation going around. Clix has been talking about how him and Pete have been 1v1 surge trade, practicing and creative, going peeking against each other as if they're surge trading, and that kind of has made people think that maybe Peterbot had the plan to go brutal box cars from the start, and this was just an even better excuse to go for it. Now, that could be looking into it a little bit too much. I did think that Pete kind of needed an excuse to leave the Demon's Domain fight and have a reason to go somewhere else, but their playstyle is very well suited to brutal box cars. They didn't do too well in the first few games of the first session, but by the time they got into the second session, they were absolutely popping off, and they actually ended up winning the session. So they're looking really solid, but if you're used to watching Pete's normal playstyle of taking super aggressive mid-game fights, you might be a bit disappointed. They're spending a lot of time built up on the mountain, trading surge with other teams to the north, and then when it comes to rotating to the south on south zones, they actually play a lot of storm before rotating. They have guaranteed launch pads. They have the academy labs around them as well. Sorry, the research labs where they can get the rifts. There's just no reason for them to take those super aggressive mid-game fights. Elims are worth 4 points in grand finals. I'm sure Pete's team's not going to be scared of taking those fights, but just like we saw last season, Pete's team was dropping crazy high kill games coming into grand finals. Then once they got to grand finals, they started getting a lot more of their surge through trading rather than just fighting, because grands lobbies are an entirely different level to even Div Cup final lobbies. They are really a different level, and that's when players really know that surge is so much harder to get and they need so much more of it. So this playstyle is a lot more consistent. I'm excited to see how they adapt to it, because it won't be as aggressive. If they try to take mid-game fights, most of the players on the team are carrying the DMRs, so they can't fight as strong as what they could before. And if you're wondering how the brutal box cars Spire is going down, Clix's team chose not to fight Peter's team at least 5 times when I saw it spawn. So I don't know if that's just scrims. Maybe in tournaments, Clix will start trying to fight Pete. I asked Clix on stream whether he's going to fight Peterbot for this Spire. He said yes, but like I said, when you're on stream, especially public, you can't show signs of weakness. You can't be like, oh no, Pete's really good, I'm not going to drop. Of course you're going to say, yeah, we're going to contest him, we're taking it. Whether they actually do or not, we'll have to see. But that would be a very, very fun mid-game fight to watch if it happens. So Clix has been weakened a little bit from this. Not only are the two best teams not contesting each other now, it also does mean that Clix now isn't going to be getting that Spire loot unless he wants to fight Pete for it. And I don't think that's a very good idea. It has about a 50% spawn rate as far as I'm aware. So let's say, I think it's even more than that. Let's say it spawns 7 out of the 12 games in grand finals. Even if Clix wins 5 of the 7, which, that is very, very good odds against Pete in a mid-game 3v3, that still means you've lost 2 entire games worth of points that you previously wouldn't have lost. So a little bit sketchy. It does mean Clix has been a bit nerfed, but I definitely think Clix can still win from Supernova if he plays his cards right. I can't show you guys the leaderboard from the first session of scrims because it was bugged. Unite was having some issues, but this is the session 2 scrim leaderboard. We had Ritual, Cold, and Peterbot finishing in first on 140 points. Remember, elims are only worth 1. If this was the grand finals format, if elims worth 4, they would have done even better because they got a 10 elim third, a 15 elim win, and then they got a 4 elim 19th. The last game, they took a very, very aggressive fight against King's team, the South Americans, who actually held their own really well, and Pete's team ended up going down in 19th, but those first 2 games were extremely solid. In second, we had Kanata, Bolts, and Rapid, who were the most consistent trio by far across both sessions. They got a 6 elim second, a 2 elim fourth, and a 2 elim 8th. They did far better in session 1, where they actually managed to get a win. They were dropping a lot of elims, but a lot of their gameplay did revolve around getting height early and holding height. They've been looking very, very strong at that. We had Cooper, Reed, and Curly dropping at their new spot. They are now dropping the resistance base. They are getting contested by Skittles' team. I talked about how I thought Skittles' team would leave if Ages wanted to go resistance base, but it looks like they are not giving Cooper, Reed, and Curly the same level of respect. Skittles wants to fight it, and so far, from what I can see, as far as the games I watched, Cooper's team won 3-0. So they're doing very, very well off spawn at resistance base, but they do have to fight. So Cooper's team maybe made a bit of a mistake giving up uncontested flooded frogs with an attempt to go resistance base, because now they are being contested. They're looking very good. They got a 17 elim third and a 9 elim third in that session as well, so doing super solid while contested. Booga, Craze, and Threats coming in 4th overall. Pollo, Ages, and Acorn coming in 5th, but I will say they were playing a lot better in session 1 as well. Again, the leaderboard doesn't work, but I watched them get an 18 elimination win in session 1, so Pollo, Ages, and Acorn looking really good with uncontested Demon's Domain, but that could change. We don't know what the loot's going to actually look like in grand finals. They aren't as lucky as EU, where they even get 1 day with it the same. Pollo, Ages, and Acorn are going to have to play out the grand finals with both days of the loot being changed or not changed. If we're believing Epic, I still don't really know what to believe yet, but overall, it was a really, really fun session of scrims to watch, and it has me extremely excited for Grants. The other major announcement for Grand Finals is Day's team is still currently in Grand Finals. Preston has since tweeted out that he is not getting unbanned. Support told him that he can't be unbanned. If you missed that whole situation, Preston was the player who got banned for getting an elimination on a player who had a bug. Northern got the shrine bug. He was trying to get rid of the bug, so he deliberately stood in the open. Preston eliminated him, and then Epic saw that as him being fed kills, and they've banned him. Now, to make things even worse, not only is Preston being denied his unban request, Northern, the player who literally fed him the kill, which again, I don't think he should be banned either. He was stuck in a rough spot. He has been unbanned. So Preston, the guy who was just eliminating a player in a battle royale like you're supposed to, has been banned, and the guy who fed him the kill, again, even though it was just, has been unbanned. I don't even know what's happening anymore, but that means Day's team is still in grand finals right now, and we have Curve's team. So we have Curve, Josh, and Tyler. They've switched their drop. They're no longer contesting Aviv's team down at Outpost. They are now contesting Flooded Frogs. So I'm excited to see how that goes, because Muzz's team hasn't yet qualified for the grand finals. He's still going to make it through last chance qualifiers. It looks like teams are now trying to steal Flooded Frogs. So if you're a Muzz fan, if you were hoping that Muzz qualifies for LAN, it is looking very, very rough. My man went from being one of the favorites to potentially qualify to LAN with uncontested resistance base to now not even being in grand finals and potentially being contested even if he gets there. Super rough to see how things have broken down for Muzz. We'll have to see what happens